KCSE History and Government Paper 2 1997. Section A, 25 marks. Answer all the questions in this section in the answers booklet provided. Give 2 limitations of using written records as source of African history. 2 marks. Identify 2 aspects of the culture of the early man that had their origins in the late Stone Age. 2 marks. Identify 2 factors which favored the development of crop growing in ancient Egypt. 2 marks. Identify 3 uses of bronze in the Kingdom of Benin. 3 marks. Name 2 ways in which the railway transport contributed to the Agrarian Revolution in Western Europe. 2 marks. What was the main source of energy during the early period of the Industries Revolution in Europe? State 2 ways through which slaves were obtained in West Africa during the transatlantic trade. 2 marks. Name 1 leader of the Protestant Reformation during the 16th century. 1 mark. State 2 functions of the Lukiko of the Baganda Kingdom during the pre-colonial rule. 2 marks. State the main reason why Samori Touré fought the French during the 19th century. 1 mark. State 2 government policies which have contributed to industrialization in India. 2 marks. Give 2 ways through which the attainment of independence in Ghana contributed to liberation of other African countries from colonial rule. 2 marks. Name 2 houses of the British Parliament. 2 marks. What event prompted the United States of America, USA, to join the First World War in 1917? 1 mark. Section B, 45 marks. Answer any 3 questions from this section in the answer booklet provided. A. Describe 2 theories about the origin of human beings. 4 marks. B. Discuss the benefits of the discovery of fire to the early man. 11 marks. A. Describe the working conditions of factory workers in Britain during the Industrial Revolution. 5 marks. B. What factors favored the development of industries in Britain by 1850? 10 marks. A. What factors contributed to the development of the Trans-Saharan trade? 8 marks. B. Describe the difficulties faced by the Trans-Saharan traders. 7 marks. A. Explain why Maji Uprising occurred between 1905 and 1907. 6 marks. B. What were the consequences of the Maji Uprising? 9 marks. Section C, 30 marks. Answer any 2 questions from this section in the answer booklet provided. A. What are the sources of the British Constitution? 3 marks. B. Describe how the government of the USSR was organized. 12 marks. A. Why was the Economic Community of West African States ECOWAS formed? 3 marks. B. Explain the factors that have undermined the activities of the Organization of African Unity OAU. 12 marks. A. What were the differences between the British policy of indirect rule and the French policy of assimilation? 3 marks. B. Explain why Frederick Lugard used the policy of indirect rule to administer Northern Nigeria. 12 marks. KCSE 1997. P2. Section A. Give 2 limitations of using written records as a source of African history. Most of the written records on African history were by foreigners who built their biases in the records. Some written records on African history contain inaccurate information. Some of the records are not reality available for case of reference. Written records are limited only to those who can read and write. Identify 2 aspects of the culture of the early man that had their origin in the late Stone Age. Growing crops, agriculture. Establishing permanent settlements. Making microlight composite tools e.g., spears. Domesticating animals. Beginning of religion and government. Beginning of government. Pottery and basketing. Identify 2 factors which favored the development of crop growing in ancient Egypt. Availability of reliable source of water. Existence of indigenous type of grains. Existence of fertile soils along River Nile. The invention and use of the shuttle for irrigation and other form of implements. Existence of a stable government under Pharaoh. Existence writing helped them to keep accurate records of seasons and volume of food. Use of slave as currency. Invention and use of farm implements. Identify 3 uses of bronze in the Kingdom of Benin. It was used to make weapons. It was used to make decorations, ornaments. It was used as a currency. It was used for statues. It was used as an item of trade. Name 2 ways in which railway transport contributed to the Agrarian Revolution in Western Europe. Railway provided efficient and reliable means of transport for agricultural products. Provided efficient transport for farm machinery and labor and farm implements. Provided efficient transport of farm tiling. What was the main source of energy during the early period of industrial revolution in Europe? Coal. State 2 ways in which slaves were obtained in West Africa during the transatlantic trade. Criminal of social misfit were sold by chiefs. Capture of war. Frictions. Kidnapping. Name 1 leader of the Protestant Reformation during the 16th century. Martin Luther. John Calvin. John Caox. Blaise Wungel. Thomas Cranett. Olaus Pettigny. King Henry VIII. State 2 functions of the Lukiko of the Baganda Kingdom during the pre-colonial period. The Lukiko advised the Kabaka. Assisted the Kabaka to administer the kingdom. Made the laws of the kingdom. It acted as the court of appeal, solved disputes. Directed correction of taxes and planning good expenditure. Represented the interests of the people. State the main reason why Samori Touré fought the French. To preserve the independence of the Mandinka Kingdom Empire. To stop French colonization. State 2 government policies which have contributed to industrialization in India. Restriction on improved goods. Promotion of technical and scientific education. Development of heavy industries by the state government plans. Emphasis on industrialization in the 5-year development. Encouragement of foreign investment in the country. Give 2 ways through which the attainment of independence in Ghana contributed to the liberation of other African countries from colonial rule. Motivated other African countries to strengthen their independence. Struggle. Nkrumah became more vocal in agitating for the course of other nationalists. Ghana played a leading role in the formation of the OAU, which was instrumental in the liberation of other states. Ghana gave financial and material support to African liberation movements. Ghana allowed some African nationalists to establish their military bases in the country. Name 2 houses of the British Parliament. Houses of the Lord. Houses of Commons. What event prompted the United States of America to join the First World War? Germany's declaration of unrestricted submarine warfare, sinking of the USA ships. Section B. Describe 2 theories about the origin of human beings. Scientific maintain that human beings evolved from ape-like creatures and developed through adaptation over a long period of time. The creation theory according to many worlds religious e.g. Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. The human race was created by God at a specific time in history to fulfill God's purpose. B. Discuss the benefits of the discovery of fire to early man. The discovery and use of fire made it possible for early man to keep warm during cold nights and seasons. Fire enhanced the security of early man as it was kept burning to keep away wild animals and other possible sources of danger. It was a source of lighting at night, which facilitated other productive activities at night. Fire improved hunting activities of early man as it was used to harden the tips of the tools for hunting. Early man used to extract poison from plants, which they used for hunting. Fire was used as a source of food preservation method, for example drying meat or fish. Fire was used to cook food and make it palatable and more nutrition. V. Fire was used to bake and harden wood for special use. G. Stools and hoe, sticks. X. Fire was used as a means of communication. A. Describe the working conditions of factory workers in Britain during the Industrial Revolution. Factory workers were subjected to long working hours. Workers received low wages. Underage children were employed to work in the factories. Poor working conditions. G. Overcrowding, inadequate lighting and poor ventilation. Lack of insurance covers for the workers, no workman's compensation. Exposure to dangerous machines, no protection against dangerous machines. Frequent outbreak of epidemic. G. Cholera, dysentery, typhoid and TB. Unhygienic conditions. B. What factors favored the development of industries in Britain by 1850? I. Availability of some machines. E. Existence of a large population which provided steady market for her manufactured goods. E. Availability of external markets in her colonies for her industrial goods. IV. Availability of iron, ore for heavy industries. V. Existence of cottage industries which acted as a base for industrial expansion. V. Availability of labor force, especially following the displacement of the people from the rural areas as a result of the Agrarian Revolution. V. Existence of capitalists, entrepreneurs who were willing to invest in the industries. She. Scientific improvement and expansion of industries. She. Existing banks and insurance systems gave financial help and security to industrialists. She. Britain had a strong navy which protected her merchants from foreign competitions. X. Of Britain's policy of free trade encouraged industrialization. XV. Availability of skilled labor force. XVI. Britain accumulated wealth, availability of capital which was invested in industries. 17. A. What factors contributed to the development of the Trans-Saharan trade? Existence of local trade in the region provided a base for the trade. Demand for West African goods such as gold, slaves and coconuts in the north. Demand for West African goods such as gold, slaves and coconuts in the north. Existence of rich merchants in the region who were willing to invest in the trade. Existence of trade routes made it easy for them to travel. The camel made their journey through the desert easy. They were able to carry heavy loads and travel long distances without water. They could also travel on sand with ease. Existence of strong leaders, political stability in Western Sudan which encouraged trade. Existence of strong leaders, political stability in Western Sudan which encouraged trade. Existence of oasis which provided water and acted as a resting point for the traders. Describe the difficulties faced by the Trans-Saharan traders. I. Communication barriers due to lack of a common language in which to conduct commercial transactions. E. Traveling long distances and for many months across the desert. E. Traveling under extreme weather conditions, too hot during the day and too cold at night. IV. Scarcity of water and food during the journey across the desert. V. Attacks by hostile communities who sometimes robbed them of their merchandise. V. Traders were sometimes attacked by insects. G. Scorpions. V. Sometimes wars between kingdoms disrupted trade. 18. Explain why the Maji Uprising occurred between 1905 and 1907. I. Cruelty and brutality of the German colonial administration, especially the Akitas and Jums. E. Forced labor on the German plantations and other works which dehumanized the Africans. E. Imposition of taxation. G. Hut tax provoked resentment among Africans. IV. Compulsory growing of cotton on unsuitable soils and hence poor yields. V. The Africans desired to regain their lost independence. V. Disrespect for African culture by the German administration. G. In Uganda, the Germans misbehaved with Gando women. V. The charismatic role played by kcse in using religion to unify the people of southern Tanzania against the Germans. B. What was the outcome of the Maji Uprising? I. The uprising led to destruction of property as southern Tanzania. G. Houses and crops. E. There was loss of many lives through the war and resulting starvation. E. Many people were displaced as they escaped from the war-torn region of southern labor. IV. The German colonial government changed its policies. E.g. abolition of forced labor. V. Change of German colonial administration structure from direct to indirect rule. Henceforth Africans were used as administration because they understood their systems better. V. The Uprising laid foundation for future African naturalism in Tanganyika, Tanzania. V. Created division between those communities which resisted and those which collaborated. Section C. 19a. What are the sources of the British Constitution? I. Act of Parliament. E.g. the Magna Carta, the Parliament Act of 1911. E. The British Conventions, which have been used from generations to generation over a long period of time. For example, those which, the British citizens against the excess of the executive. E. The courts of Britain established decision made by the British law courts from time to time become part of the British Constitution. E.g. in 1884 the supremacy of Parliament. IV. Legal publications by reputable authorities. E.g. scholars, lawyers, statesmen. Political thinkers. B. Describe how the government of the USSR was organized. I. The USSR was a federation of several socialist republics. E. The federation was headed by a parliament. E. The Supreme Soviet was the highest law-making institution. IV. The Supreme Soviet was made up of two houses, the Soviet of the Union and the Soviet of the Nationalities. V. There existed a council of ministers headed by the Prime Minister, who was also the head of the government. V. Each state had its own government and parliament. V. The Union government was in charge of defense, currency and foreign policy. V. There were local Soviets to run affairs at the local level. X. System of courts existed from the local to the federation level. The courts were independent. X. The Communist Party controlled the government at all levels. It was the supreme political force in the USSR. She. The Communist Party was the only legal political party in the country. She. The leader of the Communist Party was the most powerful person in the USSR. 20a. Why was the Economic Community of Western African States, ECOWAS, formed? I. To promote economic cooperation among West African states. E. Promote unity and solidarity among member states. E. Lack of funds to facilitate implementation of OAU activities, as some of the member states do not remit their subscription regularly. IV. Lack of an army to enforce decisions of the organization, especially on critical and urgent issues. V. Interference by foreign powers, governments in some of the activities undertaken by the organizations. V. Divided loyalty member for other international organizations by some member states, e.g., the Commonwealth. V. Political instability and the resulting refugee problems make it difficult for the organization to operate effectively. V. Attachment to former colonial masters by some member states, for instance former French colonies look up for France for assistance. X. Existence of basic problems within member states which require immediate attention, e.g., famine, drought and disease. 21a. What were the difference between the British policy of indirect rule and the French policy of assimilation? I. French colonies were ruled as provinces of France. British colonies were treated as separate political entities under the rule of the government on behalf of the British government. E. The French used assimilated Africans in their administration, the British used traditional chiefs. E. French colonies elected their representative to the Chamber of Deputy in France. British colonies were not represented in the House of Commons as they had their legislative councils. IV. Laws used in French colonies were made in France, while in British colonies laws were made by the respective legislative councils. V. In the French colonies, assimilated Africans became French citizens with full rights, while those in the British colonies remained subjects. B. Explain why Frederick Lugard used the policy of indirect rule to administer northern Nigeria. I. The existence of well-established and centralized system of government in the region, i.e. the Sokoto Caliphate. Use of the Sharia Islamic law in the Sokoto Caliphate provided a base to be used to govern the protectorate. To win the confidence and the support of all the people by giving them the impression that they were still under the governance of their leaders. Inadequate funds to facilitate administrative expenses of the protectorate. The success already realized in using the policy elsewhere within the empire e.g. in Uganda and India gave Lugard the confidence to try it in Nigeria. The poor communication network making it difficult for British officials to effectively administer different parts of the country. Did you understand? Kindly let me know. Also let me know what video I can look at tomorrow. Thanks a lot for listening to me. God bless you.